The Gnostic myth can be divided into four key stages. Initially, there is the emergence of the Pleroma, the divine realm, and the emanation of the various Aeons dwelling within it. Following this, the narrative unfolds with Sophia's fall, the youngest of the Aeons. Subsequently, the myth proceeds with the birth of the Demiurge and the creation of the material world. Finally, the story progresses into the history of humanity, encompassing the creation and development of humankind, as well as the figures who brought gnosis, spiritual knowledge, into the world to aid the imprisoned sparks of divine light in their escape. At the outset, only God existed. God transcends direct definition or description and can only be apprehended through gnosis. He is immeasurable, ineffable, unknowable, and evades any assignation of a name. While preserving his unity and transcendence, God began to emanate various aspects or qualities of himself, known as Aeons. These qualities encompass attributes such as mind, silence, depth, and love. These Aeons existed in male and female pairs referred to as syzygies. Through the union of male and female Aeons, younger Aeons, representing further facets of God, came into being. The final emanation was wisdom, known as Sophia in Greek. All these aspects of God, including God himself, coalesced in the fullness of God known as the Pleroma. Sophia, the youngest and lowest of the Aeons, grew dissatisfied. Her dissatisfaction did not manifest as rebellion against God, as in Christian thought with Lucifer, but rather as curiosity and desire. This curiosity led her to stray from the Pleroma. Some accounts suggest that she aspired to attain direct knowledge of God but fell short, descending below the Pleroma. Others propose that she copulated with the void or nothingness, resulting in her fall and subsequent pregnancy. Her offspring, often described more accurately as an abortion, took the form of a deformed being named Ialdabaoth. Ialdabaoth, also known as the Demiurge, possessed no knowledge of God, the great Pleroma above, or even his own mother, Sophia. Believing himself to be the sole God, he created the material world and proclaimed it as good. However, compared to the sublime, eternal qualities of God that comprised the Pleroma, the earthly realm appeared as a mere shadow, composed of coarse matter. After the material world was fashioned, its inhabitants endured suffering. Ialdabaoth established the Archons, a group of rulers or authorities, to govern this world and its inhabitants. Despite his arrogance, Ialdabaoth could not create the world without an element of his mother Sophia or another higher being entering it. Consequently, a small spark of the divine light from the Pleroma found its way into created beings. Humans, therefore, possess a spark of spirit within them, a fragment of divinity that can ultimately reunite with the whole. Certain Aeons, representing God's qualities, were interested in aiding humans in developing their spiritual essence, helping these seeds of light escape their confinement within the dark material world. Redeemers were dispatched from the Pleroma to impart teachings, leading to direct knowledge, gnosis, of the Pleroma. Gnosis represents a direct spiritual encounter with the divine, devoid of intermediaries or authoritative control. Those who practiced this in ancient times were known as Gnostics, and the vast network of historical figures, movements, systems, and teachings associated with these ancient Gnostics is collectively referred to as Gnosticism. Gnosticism likely had its origins during the intense period of spiritual and religious exploration in the 1st and 2nd centuries within the Eastern Roman Empire. This era also witnessed the emergence of Christianity and post-temple Judaism. The earliest documented Gnostics included figures such as Simon Magus. During the peak of Gnostic activity, numerous distinct groups existed, labeled with colorful names by early church leaders like Marcosians, Ophites, Cainites, Nazaenes, Carpocratians, and Borborites. Nevertheless, contemporary scholars typically categorize them into two main groups, Scythians and Valentinians. The Scythians, considered the archetypal Gnostics, venerated the biblical figure Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve, as the revealer of Gnostic wisdom. They identified themselves as the children of Seth. Their mythological narratives drew almost exclusively from the Bible, specifically the book of Genesis. Genesis offered a depiction of creation, the fall of humanity, and condensed stories of the patriarchs. But unlike Orthodox Christians, the Gnostics inverted the biblical narrative. Instead of an earthly paradise at the beginning of time and a golden age for humanity, what was brought into existence was a prison, and the creator of this world, the God of Jewish and Christian tradition, was not an all-knowing, all-loving God, but rather an ignorant, partially deranged craftsman who emerged as a result of the fall. They portrayed biblical heroes as unwitting instruments of the malevolent Demiurge, while elevating obscure figures to the status of humanity's redeemers. Importantly, the fall was not initiated by humans, and it was not a punishment for disobedience. Consequently, mankind is not burdened with original sin but is, instead, in a state of spiritual slumber, unaware of its true nature. For Gnostics who sought a golden age, they can find it through the spark within themselves, persisting eternally within the spiritual realm of the Pleroma. On the other hand, the Valentinians generally adopted a more moderate and conciliatory approach towards mainstream Christianity. They preferred to uncover the hidden meanings within the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament, and consider Orthodox Christianity as an external form of truth that could potentially lead to a genuine Gnostic comprehension of the divine. The early leaders of the Christian Church and the groups that eventually established Orthodox or Catholic Christianity strongly opposed Gnosticism and the various competing Christian sects of the time. As Christianity ascended to a prominent position as the official religion of the Roman Empire, the church leaders seized the opportunity to exile and suppress rival factions. Consequently, the ancient Gnostic groups like the Scythians and Valentinians gradually faded away. From that point forward, we can trace the legacy and successors of Gnosticism in two key ways. The Gnostics can be seen as dualists who recognized two fundamental principles, the transcendent, unknown God and a lower Demiurge responsible for creating the material world, establishing a duality between spirit and matter. This strand of Western dualism can be followed historically from the Gnostics to the Manichaeans, a Gnostic-influenced religion founded by Mani in the 3rd century. It then extends to the Paulicians, a Christian sect in Turkey in the Balkans, and further to the Bogomils. Eventually, it reaches the Cathars, who posed a significant challenge to Roman Catholic Christianity until the Protestant Reformation. The Paulicians, Bogomils, and Cathars attributed the creation of the material world to a demonic figure. They emphasized personal responsibility, conveyed through a rite known as the consolamentum, which bestowed the divine spirit upon the perfect, the highest initiates of the Cathars. Unfortunately, this branch of Gnostic influence dwindled in the Albigensian Crusade, and the Inquisition persecuted and eradicated the Cathar religion. The second line of Gnostic continuation can be identified through individuals and sects within Western Christianity that emphasized personal spiritual experiences within a Christian context. Throughout Christian history, despite efforts by ecclesiastical authorities to suppress them, mystics, spiritually inspired individuals, and esoteric groups have consistently emerged. Figures like Meister Eckhart, John of the Cross, and Jacob Boehme could be considered Gnostics in the broadest sense, as they experienced gnosis. Additionally, semi-secular mysticism associated with medieval alchemy in poets like Thomas Traherne, Goethe, and William Blake contributed to this spiritual tradition. Before the discovery of the Nag Hammadi library, our knowledge of Gnosticism relied primarily on critical accounts from early church leaders and a limited number of original texts representing a later phase of Gnosticism, which had received minimal scholarly attention. The breakthrough occurred in December 1945 when the Nag Hammadi codices were unearthed by Muhammad Ali Salman and his brother Khalifa Ali, two Arab camel drivers searching for fertilizer. Inside the large earthenware jar they found, there were 12 books, one of which contained an additional pamphlet, making a total of 13. These codices contained a rich collection of Gnostic and related writings, including the well-known Gospels of Thomas and Philip. The resurgence of Gnostic texts in the late 18th century led to a revival of Gnosticism, and many modern Gnostic churches trace their origins to the late 19th century, which is commonly referred to as the Gnostic Revival. The rise of Theosophy in the latter half of the 19th century coincided with a heightened interest in the esoteric aspects of religion. Madame Blavatsky's work, The Secret Doctrine, frequently made references to available Gnostic literature, including the Heresiologists and the books of Johann Pistis Sophia. These influences have had a profound impact on various spiritual and philosophical movements, such as New Age spirituality, characterized by a quest for inner enlightenment and a belief in a divine spark inherent in all individuals. They have also left their mark on Western esotericism and Hermeticism, encompassing practices like alchemy and Kabbalah. Additionally, Gnostic themes have found their way into the works of contemporary authors and scholars. For example, one can readily identify Gnostic undertones in the movie The Matrix.